Preliminarily, Dr. King, we're talking about Title I plans. Title I is the federal dollars states may apply for submitting a plan, and that constitute about 4% of all the money that state and local governments spend on 100,000 public schools. Now, there's more federal money than that, but it's not covered by Title I. So we're talking about, for that amount of money, what instructions you can give. And second, I would ask you this. You mentioned guidances coming out later. You agree, do you not, that guidances are merely illustrative and are not intended to be binding, legally binding upon local school districts?
That's right. As we've discussed, guidance is intended to provide clarity and to provide examples of best practice, but we do not believe guidance has the force of law. It does often include our interpretation of the law, again, to provide clarity.
Thank you, Dr. King. Let's talk about comparability. There, provision in the Act, as I mentioned in my opening comments, first put there in 1970, that says school districts have to provide at least comparable services with state and local funding to Title I schools and non-Title I schools. Now, the law also says on comparability in section 1118C2B, for purposes of this subsection, in determining that computation, quote, staff salary differentials for years of employment shall not be included in such determination. Now, do you agree, yes or no, that the law prohibits requiring local school districts to use teacher salaries when demonstrating that they are providing Title I schools with at least comparable services as non-Title I schools?
Yeah, you were referencing the comparability section as opposed to supplement, not supplant.
That's correct.
Section. And yes, I believe that's an accurate depiction of the comparability section of the law.
And you've had a chance to study the law. In your opinion, did Congress make any changes in the comparability section when we reauthorized the law last year?
Well, I don't believe there were changes to the comparability section,
Okay.
but
That's
there
my
were
question.
changes to supplement, not supplant.
Well, one doesn't have anything. I'm just asking you, did we change section 118C2B, the comparability section?
To the best of my recollection, no.
No, we didn't change it. Okay. Now, your proposal in April to the Negotiated Rulemaking Committee on a different subject, supplement, not supplant, says a local school district may determine the methodology it will use to allocate state and local funds, provided that methodology results in spending of local funds in a way that's equal to or greater than the average amount spent per pupil in non-Title I schools. And you also say that you define that methodology, they may create a methodology provided that the basic educational program as defined under state and local law is used. Would you agree that that language defines two methods that local school districts must use?
No. So I appreciate you're making the distinction between comparability and supplement, not supplant. And,
well, wait a minute. It says in the supplement supplant, it says provided that methodology that the local school district uses is one, the average I talked about, and two, the basic education program. How can that not be the defining of a methodology that a local school district uses?
So the proposed regulation is careful to maintain districts' flexibility with determining the methodology.
Wait a minute, Mr. Secretary. The words are provided that methodology is one or two. The question is, are you not defining a methodology when you use the words provided that methodology is X or Y?
We are not. We are laying out what criteria are necessary
but you use the words provided that methodology. Provided that methodology are the words you
followed
use?
By a set of words that describe the criteria by which that methodology would meet the principle of supplement, not supplant.
Okay. So you define the methodology.
We do not.
You do. Your proposed, I mean, how can you sit there and say that? Now, I mean, we may not be very smart up here, or at least I may not be. Let me speak for myself. I can read, provided that methodology does X, does Y. You are defining a methodology when in the law, what we put in the law was that nothing in this section of supplement and supplant, which has nothing to do with the comparability section, nothing in this section shall be construed to authorize or permit the secretary to prescribe the specific methodology a local education agency used or to mandate equalized spending. In other words, we anticipated that you were going to try to not follow the law, and we anticipated and we wrote into the law that you couldn't use a specific prohibition to do that.
As I indicated, we do not prescribe the specific methodology. Leave the methodology to districts, but are requiring
Provided that
districts
methodology
ensure-
results in X, provided that methodology results in Y. How is that not provided? How is that not providing a methodology?
Again, those are criteria by which to evaluate a methodology that would be determined by a district that would ensure that the Title I dollars are in fact supplemental and not being used for gap
Dr. King,
filling.
do you know how ridiculous the statement is you just made? If I read you plain English, if I say ABC and you say it's DEF, how can that be?
Again, I would characterize it differently. The question here is a methodology that is district determined must achieve A and B, and A and B ultimately define supplement, not supplant, which is to ensure that the Title I dollars are used in a way that is supplemental.
Well, the loss intended that states would have more flexibility in local school districts in showing, and I'm over my time, I've already violated my own rule, it looks like. But, so I'll conclude and I'll stay for a second round of questions. Thank you, Senator Murray.